Well, it's that time of the footy season, I guess, where the only question that remains to be asked is who is Melbourne going to be playing against on the last Saturday of September? Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but let's try and answer that stupid question right here on a brand new Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and I'm joined, as always, fresh from his much-discussed sermon at the royal wedding, it's the Reverend Titus O'Reilly.
I know you were. I was watching the footy, but following the royal wedding on Twitter because it was on Twitter. And yeah, that's the only bit that I came away with knowing anything about. Some guy did a crazy sermon.
Very much the same way, and I kept thinking, what's going on here? There's a black American preacher, which is a bit unusual in itself, but the fact that even like people around the world tweeting, geez, about time he pulled his head in. You know, he's gone.
But see, I still haven't seen it, so I still don't know what he said. So he could have been saying anything.
The only bit I flicked across at one point, and he was away. He was going. He did look very much to me like when Rob Sitch blacked up to do Bishop Desmond Tutu on the Late Show years ago.
Gee, you couldn't do that now.
Oh, no, you couldn't. I mean, those are the great days when you could black up for a joke and the professional whingers didn't get upset about it.
It was so much easier back in the day when you could do all that. It was.
So you didn't see much of the royal wedding?
I didn't see any of it, except for what I like following on Twitter. I know it's very in to be like either massively into it or go on about how much they hate it.
Yeah.
To me, I'm just completely like. It's rare in life that you're just genuinely completely indifferent to something.
Yeah.
Like usually you have like a view of some sort, but I was just like, I don't like weddings of people I know.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and you know, and not being invited to one is just like the usual. You know?
I mean, the idea of watching one on telly, I just hope someone in that church was streaming AFL versus St Kilda versus Collingwood or something.
Exactly.
You know.
I must admit, I didn't. Because I in principle didn't want to watch it, but again, not because I hate the Royals or hate Prince Harry or whatever. I just. Anything that has that much hype about it, I try and avoid. You know,
you just get sick of it.
Yeah, I was sick of it well in advance. The only thing I am looking forward to is thinking that the marriage itself will be over by 2020.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's the thing.
That's the thing that we can.
There's nothing like more than a raw divorce.
No, exactly. And I can't see this one going the distance, quite frankly.
It sums up your personality. I'm barracking for a divorce. I'm sure you can bet somewhere on that. We should begin by thanking our supporters, people who become supporters of the podcast. You too can become a supporter and help us continue to churn this nonsense out. If you go to TitusO'Reilly.com, there's a supporter section and you can either sign up for the year or do monthly, and there's different levels. So thank you to everyone who's done that. We should also mention that I've got a show on the 6th of June at the Comics Lounge.
It's not that far away, is it? Actually,
it's creeping
a couple of weeks away.
This is the comedy festival show I did, so it's a history of Australian sport, and it's sold out in Melbourne. So I think the last 11 or 12 shows. So
I would like to have seen your voiceover from that show dubbed over the Reverend.
Oh, really? Yeah. Do a bit of nothing would have killed better at Windsor Castle than some Australian sport history.
A bit of far lap chat.
So I'm doing the 6th of June in Melbourne. So tick as well for that. I'll put the link at Frontier Touring, and I'm going to Adelaide on the 7th of June to do the Arkaba, which is selling incredibly quick. I think that's getting close to selling out. So if you are wanting to come, I wouldn't dither on that. So I'm looking forward to getting over to Adelaide.
It's a good spot, the Arkaba. It's the only time I've ever been there. And
well, they know their footy over there, so they get pretty fired up, which I like. So keen to see everyone come along for that. Now, we should get into the round of footy, because this, I think, this round for me did a couple of things. One, I know there was a few very one-sided or not great games, but the results were so interesting that I kind of felt like this made the season really interesting, because you just don't know. You can legitimately, it's hard to pick who's going to win the grand final again.
And even this round, it was people going, oh, geez, I didn't tip that one. But it was the answer to that was, well, nobody would have tipped that one, because there was a couple of absolute roughies.
Yeah, so it was kind of, I think starting at the top, the most strange one was Essendon beating Geelong.
The most disappointing one, I would have said.
Well, I kind of got the feeling that a lot of people were like, we're not happy with Geelong, because we were really enjoying watching Essendon just implode.
Yeah.
And now they've gone from...
I don't like Geelong much, but I was really looking forward to kicking Essendon while they were down.
Just another week?
Yeah, just one more week of kicking them.
Is this proof that it was all Mark Neild's fault?
Oh, I think there's no question of that, you know. There were people suggesting even Saturday morning that other teams should hire him and then fire him immediately.
That's right, just to get that bump.
Yeah.
It was amazing because Essendon looked like...
I watched most of this. They actually played well.
They looked amazing. Like they did everything that they haven't been doing.
What happened? You know, what did they do?
This is the thing about football is effort and mindset is like all the people that make the AFL, with one or two fairly obvious exceptions, are insanely talented sports people. Like you don't get there if you. I mean, we even the ones that people think are spuds would kill it at the next level down usually, So
you got to remember every player. I mean, and we're as guilty of this as anyone is pointing the finger at certain players. But every bloke who makes it onto an AFL list has, you can pretty much assume, been the best player in every team he's played with since under eights.
Yeah, that's right.
So they can play the game.
Yeah.
But and the Essendon result, or the way they played on Saturday, just proved what a mind game it is.
Well, that's right. And they just suddenly seem to be interested in tackling and playing as a team, all the sort of things that people say.
Is Worsfold a genius, or is he just... Did you get lucky for a week? Did the message actually sink in?
I don't know. Like, I mean, look, I'd love nothing more than the narrative of Mark Neild was a blocker that didn't let the good instructions go out. And it was all his fault. But I mean, that to me, even with our Melbourne bias showing there, doesn't explain this sort of turnaround.
Completely true.
I was also shocked by how it seemed that Essendon came out strong.
Yeah.
Really started pushing hard, and how it was like they were pushing a bit on an open door where Geelong just seemed to, once it seemed like it was going to be a bit hard, just seemed...
Went missing.
Just didn't seem to... Like, you see that occasionally, and I don't know whether it was an off day for Geelong. I mean, Geelong are just impossible to figure out.
And their superstar midfield, supposedly, they could not buy clearance against Essendon.
No.
This is your Ablett, Dangerfield and Selwood.
Yeah.
Well, both Selwoods.
Gary looked like...
Gary looked finished to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a good player that you kind of can see him coming back and having 36 possessions and 3 goals next week.
Or just play him in a forward pocket and let him go.
But, like, he did, he looked every bit of his age and his injuries and stuff like that. So, but I just was, Essendon were great. If you're an Essendon supporter, you got to be sitting there going, where's this been?
Oh, exactly.
Like, why is this suddenly changed?
I was thinking that on Saturday. If you did barrack for Essendon, would you be happy with the way they played? You kind of would.
You'd be relieved.
But you'd be angry at the same time for 8 weeks we've put up with crap.
Yeah, this is the talent we knew were here.
This is what they could have done. And they made the finals last year. We were expecting this for the last 9 weeks, but it's only arrived in round 9.
Yeah. No, it was amazing. Yeah. And they had... Jay Daniel was out, Hurley was out, Andy McGrath was out, Darcy Parish had been
dropped.
He'd been dropped. Yeah. So the whole thing was pretty... And it was one of those ones where, and I tweeted a joke about this, which, when I think the Bombers got out to like an insane start. Yeah,
they did.
And I was like, now Geelong are only 90% chance to win because you were expecting typical third quarter.
Yeah.
You were just expecting typical third quarter, Essendon drop their bundle, Geelong have the talent and skill to come back.
I was expecting them to get back within and firing distance and then probably run over the top of them.
They just did not let it happen.
They didn't give a yelp, Geelong.
In fact, but also Essendon, to their credit,
didn't let them get back.
Did not let them get near to it. They were just absolutely all over them. So, that's what's weird about this. It was Geelong were terrible, but Essendon were great. So where's Essendon been? That's the question you don't know.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can follow that up again this week, Essendon.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Dean Garrow wrote in, are Essendon on track to set the record for fastest transition from in the premiership window to rebuild and then back again? It's just...
There is... It's a good point he makes in that these days, the distance between those two options is closing rapidly, and you just never know.
It might just be...
Unless you're Carlton, of course.
A lot of it just seems to be like a combination of confidence and belief in yourself, because you look at St Kilda,
Yeah.
And they're a team just bereft of any of that at the moment. Like, they just...
And then again, I mean, we're jumping ahead to that game, but again, the first half, they were a point in front of Collingwood.
Yeah.
And I thought, gee, this is going to be the week of the upset. If St Kilda get up and beat Collingwood, then I was going to put my house on Carlton beating Melbourne just for the trifecta of unlikely results.
Yeah.
But then that start of the third quarter, St Kilda, they just folded like a cheap suit. And again, as you say, it's purely a mental thing down there.
Yeah, well, this is their kicking and various...
They're kicking and they're no confidence.
And these are players that for years have kicked fine. So like Membry and stuff was a good kick at goal. Now he can't buy a goal. Talking about Carlton getting smashed, if you cast your mind back to 2007 when they played the Cruiser Cup, these two teams, it seems to me over the last 10, 11 years, these two teams have been locked in this who can do the worst rebuild.
Yeah.
And at times, I remember a couple of years ago, it seemed like Carlton were ahead of Melbourne.
They were definitely.
And then Melbourne have sort of now seemed far ahead of Carlton.
Yeah.
You can't make, and whether this is now one of them is going to, Melbourne will go on and not necessarily win a premiership, but actually be a very good side for a while and potentially win a premiership. And Carlton really are dropped off. You don't know, or whether this is just a blip and it's going to reverse again, because Melbourne have won 4 against very weak opponents, but it was smashed by Richmond and Hawthorn.
Yeah, the only one of those 4 that you're looking back at and say, well, that wasn't a bad victory, was North Melbourne, because they've been good since, but the rest have been rubbish.
That's right. And I think North have come to be a bit better since then. So there's sort of this sort of thing with Melbourne, there's question marks, but you got to say on yesterday's evidence, now I know Carlton had a lot of outs. The Kernos both being out in the end anyway, and they didn't have many others of their key. I think they had about 9 of their top players at least out.
They had no one to kick to.
I was genuinely, while very pleased at watching Melbourne actually get carried away with 100-point plus victory, I was watching that game from the second quarter on, genuinely astounded at how bad Carlton were.
Yeah, they didn't give a yop.
I know everyone was saying, oh, Melbourne amazing and Tom McDonald gives them structure and all this, but I mean, if Melbourne couldn't do that against the way Carlton were playing, I mean, they were walking it out of the back 50. Yeah. Walking it out. And then, no pressure whatsoever.
And then walking into open goals.
That's right.
One after another. I was watching it thinking, Jesus, I'd hate to be a Carlton supporter watching this.
Yeah, because we've been on the reverse.
Been on the end of that many a time, and you'll always cop a loss or sometimes a spanking by a good side, but you want to see the effort. You want to see the other team earn their goals.
Yeah,
and when you've got Alex Neil-Bullen running into open goal 3 times, you go, something's broken down somewhere.
There was just a heap, of moments where Melbourne looked like the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah.
It was just insane.
They were flipping it overheads and they were hitting targets.
Yeah, it was just everything. And then if Carlton got the ball, a bit of pressure and they'd drop it or they, so it was just that thing you've seen before. So while I'm if you're a Melbourne supporter, you're absolutely buoyed by it because he was a run of 4 games that you weren't confident in the past we'd have won all of them. In fact, you could have seen us go 2-2 or 1-3. We've won all the games we're meant to win, but at the same time, you look at it and go, gee, you wouldn't take too much out of beating Carlton like that. I mean, that's what makes it so amazing. Essendon losing to them.
Oh, exactly. And again, that the Carlton side yesterday, they just didn't offer up much in opposition. But the Melbourne. The one thing you can say is probably that when you talk about the rebuilds and stuff like this, their recruiting, you've got to say, over the last 3 or 4 seasons is really starting to pay off and looking like they might be a chance. But
that's right.
But who knows? And the other thing, when Melbourne, even over the last 12 months where we've started to think we might be half decent again, if we get 4 or 5 goals in front, then they'd take their foot off the pedal and generally let the other side back in and hopefully they'd pinch a win. It's been a long while since we've got 5 goals in front and then said, okay, let's make it 15. Let's make it 10 in front.
Well, that's why there is some heart coming out of Melbourne over the last 4 weeks because they've destroyed some sides that they should destroy. Yeah. The problem's going to be when they're going to play Adelaide in Alice Springs, which is another one of selling away a home game is kind of madness because that could be at the MCG instead. But that's going to tell, where they really are because it's. The way Carlton played yesterday, I know they played a lot better the week before, but they had a lot of outs. But the way they just played, if you can't, I just couldn't see how they couldn't lose by 100 points the way they played. Carlton supposed to be furious. Kirsten Dwyer Linton wrote in, were Carlton wearing orange socks or were they witches' hats? I think they were wearing the orange socks to raise awareness for violence against women. Being against that, I should add. So it's a good cause Carlton got there, but it did sort of look like it at times. David Berkelmans wrote in, did you enjoy today's win as much as the AFLX Premiership?
Got to say I did, David. I got to say
it's right up there.
I didn't think anything would probably top that, but that
nothing predicts season form like AFLX form. Nick C wrote in, what does it say about the world we live in when my 7-year-old son believes in Santa but refuses to believe Melbourne just won by 109 points?
Nick, your son has the perfect level of cynicism that we admire, even at 9.
One is a lot more unlikely. Stuart Butler wrote in, be honest, when Melbourne were 90 points up with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, how nervous were you?
That sums up us Melbourne supporters.
Well, I got to say, this is one of the rarest games where I was, once we got in the third quarter, I was not nervous at all because, I should have been, I guess, but it was just...
Yeah, well, at half-time I thought there is absolutely no way possible we could lose this game. But then when we got 10 goals in front, I thought, gee, I hope we don't take the foot off the pedal and only win by 6. Generally we have to be 90 points in front before I can put a tick in the book.
How quickly, though, do fans of any team, our minds change? You look at Richmond supporters, there was a lot that were melting down over yesterday's effort. Yeah. While there are others saying, let's keep it in perspective. But, Melbourne supporters go from, I just hope we win, to we didn't win by enough. How quickly does our mindset swing around?
Oh, absolutely.
Really, we're third on the ladder. I can't believe it. I should be as happy as anything, not going, we've only...
But you just think, in 3 weeks' time we could be 10th again,
Yeah, that's right. Don't say that. Now, of course, I know you're a keen studier of China, and no one is more behind this. But Gil McLaughlin said that the league's Chinese experiment has gained momentum this week. Yeah. Did you know that?
I think he also he said this whole thing, it's got legs.
It's got legs.
I think he was talking about what was in the pre-match lunch.
I think that's the French, isn't it? The Power,
of course, in China, it could have been anything.
Power beat the Suns. Now they said that it was a sellout crowd of 11,000, but only 10,689 showed up.
Oh look,
but it was raining all day.
Beat around the bush. That is not spin. That is a blatant lie. Completely blatant, open lie.
You reckon?
Because that's a suggestion that there's only a couple of hundred tickets unsold.
Well, I think 11,000, to me, if it was raining most of the day and the game was not much, and if you're any of the VIPs or people who can go into the marquee and just drink.
Well, yeah, surely you would have done that.
I think a lot of people, that actually, while a lot of people say that's an excuse, that actually rings true to me, because if I was at that game, after about 5 minutes, I would have gone, let's go to the bar.
We do that at the MCG,
right.
On a good day.
But I thought it actually looked fuller than last time, but it's just when you say it's a sellout and then there's whole chunks of the stadium where you can obviously see people aren't standing, that's where it becomes a bit...
Yeah.
Unbelievable to me.
You just cannot, fathom what they say.
Yeah. So,
and it was a crap game too, And the Gold Coast, haven't they come out since the game and said that's it for us, we're out of here, we're out doing this shit again.
Yeah. They've sort of you look at, Gold Coast got to focus on winning over the Gold Coast, and they've got to focus on winning games, and there's no point to it. Also, I can understand. To me, this is my thing about China, right? The AFL so often pitch things that if they pitched the emphasis of it to the public honestly and openly, we would go, all right, fair enough. So my example I've used before is international rules. International rules to me is if you said, look, we don't have an international component to our game. We don't have an all-star game or anything. So the idea of international rules is we reward the best players with a fun trip to Ireland, see a bit of the world, get a bit of that stuff. It's a reward for that, and that's what it is. And we're not trying to pretend it's not a junket. That's right. Like it's when they sort of pitch it like it's some exciting great sport that's got any future or something. If they just were honest and said, look, it is a junket, but it's a reward to the best players, and it's an honour and it selects and all that. And I go, fine, for whatever. You then get into arguments about whether that's the best way to spend money. But at least you go, well, okay, that's at least you're giving us you're not treating us like morons. Now the China thing for me is simple. If they pitched it to me. They pitch it like this is a chance to win over China to AFL or Australian rules football. If they actually just came out and said, China is such a big market that by doing this, we can attract an enormous amount of business opportunities for the clubs involved, which is true. Port Adelaide have made a lot of money off the sponsorships of China. So for them, in terms of a commercial deal, this has been a smart, clever exercise. And if you had another club of similar stature, it might be a Victorian club or not the Gold Coast, with fans, you could see them playing a game over there once a year. It has a lot of fans go over, travel for fun, and it just provides those business and networking opportunities. Plus, the AFL came out and said, also, it provides the ability to network for business people so our own sponsors can go over and work in China or have a platform to meet people. And it also opens up the diplomatic doors between the federal and state governments over here and the Chinese government. And we're providing that platform, which ingratiates the AFL strategically with the federal government and the state governments, right? Gives them something they can offer to take people and all that. I get all the logic of that, right? Like if they actually said that's what it's for, it's when they sort of say, we're going to win over this. Here's a huge market opportunity here for me. I'm like, it's a diplomatic, political, economic platform that can do some good things for a couple of clubs and help the AFL out with federal government and a few things.
And when they come out 3 weeks,
and that's it. Like it's not going. They're not going to win over every kid over there.
This could be the biggest TV game in the history of football.
Like that's just my view of it. Like if they just said that and said that's why we're doing it. That's why it's when they pretend they've got an opportunity to grow a new market, and you're going, well, hang on, Tasmania's in trouble. You haven't even locked down New South Wales by any long shot, and Queensland's a basket case despite the Lions winning yesterday.
Country football in Victoria's struggling.
Football, and that's not all the AFL's fault because of demographic change. But you know what I mean? Like, don't sell this as a as this we're going to suddenly have 1 billion Chinese playing this sport.
They're going to do the same thing with India next year.
See, once again, if they can point out the benefits of it without giving everyone the nonsense of what it's for.
Yeah, but they won't do that. They have to, whether it's justifying their own existence by this stupid thing of pretending, as you say, by playing a single game there once a year, is going to suddenly convert a small proportion of the population. And that's all it would need is a very small proportion to this great game. But we all know that ain't going to happen. That isn't the case. It is purely...
Is there a percentage chance that could happen? Maybe, yes. I mean, but the odds are it's not. But to me, the benefits are, like, if you're trying to sell this and actually say to the people who doubt it, which I would be sort of one of them, but I'd say, well, look how much money has come in the door for Port Adelaide from sponsors because of this. And that on its own is you go, okay, well, that makes sense to me now.
And that's new sponsors, and what they have done, both clubs, they've been able to leverage this with their existing sponsors.
That's right.
To say, look, by the way, you're now reaching potentially another 20 million
and we'll take
viewers.
You over there and we'll introduce you to the key diplomats from China and business people in China.
You can stand in the green marquee out the back.
Visit the fake castle. So that to me makes sense, but it's just more the way they portray.
So who goes next year?
Well, there's talk of a Victorian side as they're trying to
have to be St Kilda, surely.
You reckon?
Oh, purely because they're the ones most probably desperate for money in Victoria.
I think the only one that, like, a club has to look at it and go, well, we think we can make similar. This can fix a lot of problems, or see an opportunity that's going to really help them. I mean, I look at it and go, well, Melbourne's already got a couple of games in the NT, so they're unlikely to sell any other games. Hawthorn and North both play in Tasmania a fair bit, so their fans wouldn't be thrilled with another trip overseas.
Collingwood don't need to.
Collingwood, you'd argue, don't need to unless there's some view
Brisbane certainly don't need to.
Yeah,
although you could see the marketing value of the Tigers in China.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd have to look at the exact dollars. Because, if a club can look at it and go, well, this fixes us financially.
Ground up tiger penis is a delicacy in China.
You'd be the one to know. Now, the Eagles, talking of matches, I mean, we were not surprised about the Suns losing, but I was looking forward to this all weekend, the 1 versus 2, the Eagles taking on Richmond. Started off okay. The Eagles got ahead and then Richmond came back, and at halftime it was all squared up and it looked like it was going to be an absolute cracking second half. And then the Eagles just...
Oh, very good.
They just took Richmond apart to the point where when you look at it, I mean, there's the home field advantage and that certainly plays a factor, but, I mean, they really took him apart. It wasn't like they just got all across the line by a bit.
Richmond hardly laid a tackle in the second half, which just proves that their whole Richmond pressure game, which is what they won the flag on last year, just vanished yesterday under a bit of pressure from West Coast. And again, I think this is just a bit of a blip on the Tiger screen this year. I reckon they'll come back next week.
Oh, I'm not like writing off the Tigers. I mean, a lot of people are saying, oh, they lost in, I think it was Adelaide, and then they've lost this, and they can win on the MCG, but nowhere else. And I'm like, well, it's a very small sample size we're going off. And, you know, they were probably due to have a flat game and all that sort of stuff. But, and also you don't peak in round 9. I mean, Richmond were terrible for the first half of last year into the middle of the season. It was really, so they know what to do. And I'm not like, wouldn't be too despondent about it if I was a Tigers fan. But I would say this about the Eagles, like up until this point, you had to question whether they were, well, as everyone in the media has written today, the real deal.
Yeah.
And suddenly they look like they actually are.
They are.
Darling is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and he's one who's had a question mark over him for a couple of years. Everyone's
he's had a few injuries and stuff.
And he had a couple of big games. He dropped his head and he pulled out of a couple of contests and people pointed the finger at him. But you look at him, he's a big, strong unit still. And a good player. And when he turns on, he turns on. And blokes like Lacroix, he was finished last year. Lacroix, and somehow managed to get one more year on his contract, and he's played really good footy now.
But that's the thing;
they're all starting to click.
Yeah, they've got they've got really good players. They're all on. Most of them are on the field at the moment, and they were just dominant. Like if you're an Eagles fan, you'd be so pumped. Andrew Taylor wrote in, was Yo in danger of being deported for being Dusty's daddy all game? I did see a few times Dusty got caught, which is so rare. Yeah. That was the amazing. I mean, Dusty was one of their better players, him and Rewalt, but it was a strange one. Like,
I think what you just said, you're right. That the story here wasn't that Tigers getting beaten. It was, West Coast were pretty damn good.
Yeah,
and it'll be interesting next year after Andrew Gaff moves to Melbourne.
Oh, you reckon that's what's happening?
That's on.
You really?
Oh, I reckon it's on.
What's made you think that?
Oh, because a lot of the Melbourne clubs are going to have a crack at him.
Yeah.
And I reckon Melbourne are very well set. He's the running outside midfielder that Melbourne sort of lack at the moment.
Really? Oh, you heard it here first. Is this like, are we becoming Perth breakfast radio?
With less credibility,
yeah,
of course.
you're guaranteeing this. Well, who knows? All I think is now that just shows Richmond is still in the premiership race. The Eagles are definitely in it now. Yeah. There's a bunch of others you go, who else is?
Yeah,
now, Adelaide, I think, with all their injuries, if they can actually get players back, I think Adelaide are genuinely...
I reckon they're perfectly set
But look how well they do even when... that was a terrible game, by the way, that one against in the rain and everything. The Bulldogs were appalling.
Yeah.
But Adelaide, they keep losing good players to free agency or trades. Well, restrict free agents. They keep getting injuries galore, and they just still win.
Well, that's my point about I think they're very well set for another crack at it this year because they've had all these injuries now, and they're still winning most games.
Yeah.
Whereas they'll get all those guys back by probably all of them by round 15, round 16, which gives them a nice clear run at the finals.
Yeah, that's right.
Come finals time, if they've got a fit list, they'll be very hard to beat again.
And then you look at
grand final.
You look at the others that are thereabouts. I mean, Melbourne, you just don't know.
Yeah, you just don't know.
I mean, we've learnt that any club that's in the top 8 has a chance if they go on the time their run at the right time has a chance. But Geelong are all over the shop. Hawthorn,
you never know.
Getting to Hawthorn,
Port Adelaide, they're in there, but again, they're good on their day. But
but so
GWS, where are they at?
Well, they're 11th.
They're all over the joint at the
they're
moment.
11th. I mean, you're starting to look at them and going, are they going to make finals?
They're going to struggle. Yeah.
They have to really get a lot of players back and really turn it on for the net. They're setting up to the point where they're going to have to go on like a 7 or 8 game winning streak.
Yeah, which they're quite capable of. But you think last week they dropped Jonathan Patton, and they can't get Toby Green fit. They're well under the market.
Yeah, they got a lot out. Yeah. One thing everyone enjoyed this week was Luke Hodge playing Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Now, Brisbane to me have looked good, like they're getting somewhere over the last few weeks, and they just haven't broken through. But I don't think anyone expected them to just completely smash Hawthorn.
No. And I watched a fair bit of this game yesterday, and it wasn't like the Melbourne Carlton game where Hawthorn were just awful. Brisbane were really good, and they were hard at it.
Yeah.
And they ran in waves, and Steph Martin was good in the ruck again, and Beams and Zorko and those blokes, they were very good.
Oh, they were terrific. It was
even
every bit that
the recruit boy, what's his name?
Eagles. Every bit of what Brisbane have been sort of threatening had clicked together for the first time and Hawthorn just didn't know what to do with it. And Mitch Robinson, remember, he pretended to trip over Sicily after Rayner pushed him to the ground and then just totally fell on his head. And I thought, well, this is a bit of the unsociable Hawks coming into this.
Oh, exactly. And everyone thought, well, that's such a typical, because Robinson is a bit of a nutcase.
Oh, yeah.
But everyone was happy to see it done to Sicily.
That was the funny thing.
Everybody hates Sicily.
If Sicily
even his teammates hate him.
If Sicily had done the reverse to someone else, the outcry today would be like nothing else. Yeah. But instead, everyone was like, "Oh,
good, yeah."
But Brisbane just were all over them for the once it got past that second quarter, they were just all over them. So many of the all the young players that you thought were going to be okay just sort of stepped up. But then also, I think for Hawk supporters, watching Luke Hodge get on top of and direct the lines to beat them, it's like bumping into your ex in the street and you're dressed in trackies and hungover and unshaven, and they're looking great and hanging around with better, more attractive looking friends.
When that happens, you don't look at yourself and go, unshaven, hungover, trackies. Probably that's why she dropped me.
But Hawthorn supporters, it was hard enough. I know a lot of them before the game started were going, this is going to be really difficult to watch us play against Hodge.
Yeah.
For them
but they still assumed that they were going to win. We don't want to be playing against Hodgie, but it's okay. We'll win the
Hodgie.
game anyhow,
Yeah.
They certainly weren't expecting that to happen.
So the trick for Brisbane now is, can they keep this up?
Well, that's the problem. As you say, over the first 8 games, they've played really good footy in patches. And, let's say for three and a bit quarters.
Yeah.
But, not for the 4. They did it for the 4 yesterday.
Yeah.
Will they be able to do that again next week?
No,
they probably won't.
And it's thrown the all, once again, no idea what's going to happen with Hawthorn losing like that. Just shows you this year is a bit crazy. Bert Burtington wrote in, how many times did the umpires allow the Lions shepherd the Hawthorn forwards without penalty to allow them to win by 10 goals? Must have been a lot. I think Clarko's going to have a few more coffees.
Yeah, that's obviously referencing the Clarko meeting with Gill last week.
Clarko was saying it was all about shepherding, and that's what Sydney got away with blue murder, and then...
Hawthorn have been... That's what Johnny Longmire said. He said...
Well, Jordan Lewis said it too. He said we used to train to do it under Clarko.
He said, we're masters of it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You watch... there were a few blocks caught and penalised yesterday across some various games. So obviously... this was the umpire's rule of the week, which doesn't exist, but this was the rule of the week. But you can see it when it's done cleverly and done with stealth. You can still get away with it. It's now the obvious ones.
But it's like lots of sports. Like, if you run massively out of your way to block someone, it's not a good look. But if you just happen to be able to stand where they want to go or in front of them at certain points, well, like, you're allowed to stand on the ground or be on the ground. Like, you're not meant to get out of people's way. Like...
Yeah, and it's like shepherding in play, not just a marking contest like the blocking.
But it's like pick and rolls in basketball. It's it's the whole thing. Like every smart team does it, and you've got to fight against it, not complain about it.
And I just wonder, was there more to Clarko's madness than just complaining about the blocking.
Well, I think it was to take the focus off the fact that, they were getting done.
Flogged, yeah.
Dave Terry said, now that Matthew Eagles is a success story, should the rest of the Brisbane Lions list be replaced with reality TV stars? I tell you what, I never believed that the winner of the recruit would ever amount to anything.
Yeah.
Not against Matthew Eagles. I just meant anyone that had ever.
Well, you just thought. I thought last year, the reason why none of them kicked on was the reason they were on the show.
Yeah.
They're not good enough.
That's right.
They're simply not good enough to be in the AFL. If they were, they wouldn't be on the recruit. They'd be in the AFL.
But there's always some player like you imagine that kind of just does fall through the cracks. It's just
there's plenty of them.
There's examples of those over the years.
A lot of recruiters and experts and club people reckon there's more fall through the cracks these days because the draft and the recruiting has been so specifically designed now to find certain athletic types and body shapes.
Yeah.
And you've got to pass all these tests at the combine and what have you. Whereas some guys who are just, they might not have a great vertical leap or be able to run a 15 beat test, but geez, they can get the footy 50 times a game.
Yeah.
There's blokes like that still playing in suburban footy.
Well, Dane Swan always said that if you applied all the various metrics and stuff, it's just he could get the ball better than anyone else.
Like Greg Williams, Diesel Williams, he would never get drafted these days. He was lucky he went through 3 clubs anyway to get his first go because they all said he was too fat and too slow. But that's fine. But if you're getting 58 kicks in a game at a lower level, maybe he's not.
Well, that's the other
football.
thing that the older players that maybe take a few more years to either get serious or so. It is really. Pat Rennick wrote in, what was or is more anticipated, Hodge versus Hawthorn in 2018, Lever versus Adelaide next round, or Jimmy Toumpas versus Melbourne in AFLX? They're all huge marquee games. Actually, Lever versus Adelaide next week is going to be interesting.
Oh yeah, it will be, and that's it's a pity it's up in Alice Springs.
Oh, don't get me started.
But it's certainly the game of the round.
We talked about so Adelaide, it just poured down on Friday night.
Yeah,
wasn't
that a shocker?
And then what I found, I did like how in response to it pouring down, the Bulldogs went, what we should do is handball more.
Yeah, let's.
Like the ball was like soap, no one could pick it up, and they're just like, let's just handball all the time.
It's what you learn in under 12s. When it's wet, the ball, it's not going to bounce sideways. When it hits the ground, it goes straight ahead. While the rain and the damp's going to affect your ball handling, it makes the game easier to play on a lot of levels because it's suddenly far more predictable.
You just want to knock it forward. I mean, it was amazing how much Eddie Betts was, like, even in the wet, was still just slotting goals from out on the... He's a freak. But it was an odd night for the Doggies overall. 2 goals for the whole game, even though the conditions... I mean, what's happened to the Dogs is kind of amazing, Like, they had that amazing run for the grand final for the premiership, but since then, I mean,
they've been no good at all since then.
No good at all. And they had a weird night. One after the loss, Luke Beveridge got stopped by a fan as he was walking down from the coach's box and asked for a selfie, which he did.
Yeah.
And some people were critical of him, and I was a bit like, well, it's more the fan asking him. Like, if he said no, everyone would have said, they probably got stuck into him of being rude or something.
I think it just shows what a good bloke he is.
A fan asked him and he goes, he probably was like, I don't want to do this, but he probably went, I'll quickly do it, I mean, it's not like that was why they lost. I mean, so it had no bearing on the whole thing. The game's over by this point.
I thought the lack of judgment was on the
spectators. Fans, pick your moments. But chance to get a...
And old people probably thought, well, maybe this will travel all the way from Footscray to Adelaide to watch the game, so I'll play it back with a selfie.
That's right. So I think he was being nice, so I don't really get the thing. The other thing is Easton Wood said that
maybe that's their problem, he's too nice.
That's the one thing they all say. Easton Wood said he was slapped on the backside by an Adelaide fan as he went to do a kick near get the ball and do a kick near the boundary. He said he wasn't...
It was outside Hooters after the game,
He said he wasn't expected the contact that came over the fence and he was disappointed. He said, I certainly wasn't hurt or anything like that. I was a bit surprised. My preference would be to go to work and not get slapped on the arse by a complete stranger. Now, I know that's not a sentiment you share.
What's up? Eastern Wood, #MeToo.
See, this is the thing. Like, at the Variety Hour, that's something we encourage.
Yeah. Not that there's too many complete strangers strutting around the Variety Hour studio.
Maybe that's why. So the Adelaide Crows are investigating the incident.
How do you investigate the incident?
Well, they just get the CCTV and see if they can identify the person, and if they know who it is, they'll boot them.
What was the bloke thinking? I assume it was a bloke, was it? I haven't seen the footage.
I think it was a bloke, yeah. But you don't want, I mean, in all honesty, while this is sort of silly, you shouldn't be touching him. Yeah. And I can understand why Eastwood was annoyed by it. Yeah. I mean, you know, you don't. It's a bit like the one where the guy started yelling at Max Gawn, but this is a sort of a further step, you know. Yeah,
the old slap on the ass. You would like maybe Eastwood would turn around, grab the guy by the throat, you know, which of course he couldn't do that.
Yeah. So, but anyway, interesting one. It was a bizarre
These sort of weird things only happen in Adelaide, don't they? You know.
Well, there's actually a fight between St Kilda and Collingwood fans again. There's a fair bit of violence happening in the AFL crowds at the moment, and I don't know whether it's new or because of social media and everyone's got a camera, that when these fights happen, they now get captured and then the media can't resist but put them up.
Yeah. There's probably a bit of that.
It feels like there's more, but then I don't know. But in the past, if there was one, and it wasn't reported in the paper or anything.
And so you remember...
you would know about
years gone by, if a blue started in the crowd, you would see it from 100 metres away.
Yeah.
And the sort of the noise would be there, and you would see the cops or security come in and do it. But these days, people were able to film it up close. Well, I've got to say, that thing between just St Kilda and Collingwood fans was an absolute disgrace. There's kids around. And see, the bloke who touched Eastwood on the arse might be just a bit of a strange cat. Yeah. But I don't really care. But these ones, the St Kilda Collingwood supporters, they're the ones that need to be tracked down and kicked out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was quite it was quite a violent fight and went on for quite some time. And ridiculous. You're right, there were kids around all over the place. And
nobody needs to see crap like that.
Well, that's right. Like, this is where the A-League would cop it if there was that.
Yeah, I suppose if I want to see that sort of thing, I'll go to the soccer.
Well, I mean, I don't know where you get the stats from, because I imagine the AFL, I don't know whether they're not likely to publish them, but in the past, if there was a fight, security break it up, kick everyone out, no one's filmed it, journos might not even know it occurred, so it's not reported in the media. And so that's the end of it. Yeah. That's the end of it. And most of the people, unless you saw it direct, you'd never even hear about it. But now you see them all, you know. And
that footage is up on Twitter before the end of the game.
Yeah, you know? And there's three or four incidents now this year. Yeah, we had a few. Adelaide had a few. We've had so there's been a few I've seen. So it's kind of not something you want to keep happening. The Victorian cricket team announced this week that they are dropping, or the Cricket Victoria announced they're dropping from their cricket team the nickname the Bushrangers, which they've had for the past 20 years.
20 years, has it?
20 years they've had that in place.
I would have thought maybe 5, but yeah.
For past 20 years. And they said that a lot of people thought originally it was because of political correctness, because Bushrangers are really armed robbers, but that wasn't why. Armed
robbers are encouraged in Victoria, let's be honest.
Sean Graff said that it was too much clutter with Melbourne having two big bash teams, the Stars and the Renegades, and he's also saying that the Victorian women's team will no longer be called the Spirit, which I don't know if many people knew.
I don't even know that
they were called the Spirit.
I don't know they had a Victorian women's team.
So it seems that they're sort of getting out of this and just going back to they'll just be Victoria from now on.
So the Victorian cricket team renamed as the Victorian cricket team.
Yeah, that's right. So what do you see? The thing with this is, it more to me reflects the fact that the Sheffield Shield and the state teams have no commercial element to them whatsoever. So who cares what they're called? Because it's just a development.
Cricket Australia don't care.
No one cares. All the money is in the Test team and the BBL, and these are just
this will show how much
development squad.
You or I care. Okay, Victoria, we know they were the Bushrangers. Can you name what any of the other state teams, their nicknames? Who are the New South Wales?
Blues.
Are they?
Yeah. And the Queensland were the Bulls.
Oh, okay.
South Australia were the Redbacks, weren't they?
Were they?
Yeah. Trying to remember something else. Like, I don't know them that well. Be first to me, I don't know well.
The New South Wales, I'm thinking that's rugby league, but yeah, you're right. Maybe the Blues.
Yeah, I know some of them.
What are WA? Sandgrapers? No, that's just a general term, isn't it?
I will remember this. I know them, but I don't know
the point being that it doesn't immediately spring to mind.
Even though I remembered bits of them, I totally don't remember all of them because it's irrelevant to you. The thing about it is, I actually thought the Bushrangers was actually a good name.
Yeah.
That's the one thing where it's very Australian. It has, with Ned Kelly and various things, it links to Victoria really well. I'm more like...
your pinch victories and,
Yeah, so there's a few that are just terrible and I kind of go, well, that actually was a good name. So it's interesting whether it's someone else, whether it's outside of cricket.
Yeah.
Like if you were an A-League team or you were a new, one of the BBL teams. I mean, the Renegades, they're like, the Stars. I mean, if you were one of them, you'd prefer Bushrangers.
Bushrangers, yeah.
It lends itself way better to...
The Melbourne Bushrangers. It sounds a lot better.
It sounds a lot better and lends itself to... So that's where it's more interesting, or another NBL team or something.
Right, as soon as this is over, let's register melbournebushrangers.com.
I think they own it all anyway.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. It just shows you that there's they just basically said like there's no merch to sell, there's no commercial, so it's just a simple thing. But I don't know. I thought that was actually one of the better brands, so that's where it just struck me as a bit. I get the logic in a way, but
I sort of get the logic. But again, you're right. If you've got a reasonable brand, is there any real need to destroy it? Or
that's
just
my
stop
thing.
doing it,
I mean, I guess they still own it, but it's not going to use it. Getting our listeners' questions, Barry McKenzie wrote in, when asked on a job interview what is one of my strengths, I told them that I can endure long periods of emotional abuse. Why haven't I been asked back for a second interview? I'm assuming he's a Carlton or Melbourne supporter or something. It didn't say.
I'm also wondering why he's asking us this question. But
Well, actually, I am in shock because I think a lot of jobs is just, he could definitely work in a call centre.
Yeah, exactly.
Or for Mark Neild.
If you can endure long periods of emotional abuse, that sets you up for, so many jobs these days.
That's right.
So good luck with that, Baz.
Michael Barbaro wrote in, is French toast called French toast in France, or do they just call it toast?
Good question, Michael. Actually, it's not a good question at all. But
do you want to know the answer to this?
Yeah, I seriously can't even think of a smart-ass response.
So I looked this up because it's such an interesting...
Yeah. You had a busy weekend.
So French toast, it actually predates France as a country. So originally, there's variants of French toast going back to the Roman times.
Sorry, I asked.
In the 15th century, King George V got into it. He found out about this, and it was before France existed in its current form anyway. And it wasn't considered French toast, but he liked it. It was just bread in egg and fried.
No, the country. I mean, what was it?
Oh well, there was all the different provinces and things like that. Right. So then so it's been around as a dish, but not called French toast, and so it's definitely not French. Then in I think it was the 19th century. Are you glad you're along for this journey? Yeah. This is why they're the best AFL/sports podcast in the nation. Yeah. A guy in America, New York, basically, whether he learned it from someone else or just reinvented it, because it seems to have been just dipping egg in bread in egg and frying it is not a culinary masterpiece.
He's going to win your MasterChef.
He started selling it at his cafe and it became quite popular, and he called it, surname was French. Right. So he started to call it, he wrote a sign out the front to say French. It was called French's toast, it was his toast. But he was hopeless with apostrophes and punctuation, so it just said French toast on the sign, and that's how it became French toast.
You feeding him just made all that up.
No, I swear I read it all. I went and Googled it.
A bloke.
Because I thought this is going to be a 2-second
Johnny French, who owned some
cafe
in New York.
Yeah, that's true.
He dipped his bread in egg.
And that's what it is.
They call it French toast.
Oh, that's a good little Someone listening to this, some boring bloke like me will be sitting there with his kids on a Sunday morning once, and they'll order French toast. And you go, hey, you know what?
Guess what?
And the kids will just go, Dad, please go away. Don't talk to us anymore.
Okay. And next week, Titus will explain beef Wellington.
So in France, it's not called French toast. It's actually got like I can't
what is it
remember
called
what
in France?
It's like a French name that's not. It's French like something.
Bit old Johnny French.
You know, those French, they got a word for everything.
Except French toast.
It's like their own language. We're going to award a T-shirt.
Oh yeah, I'll let you pick it.
Oh right, okay, fair enough. Well, as much as I like the French toast one. Let's give it to David Terry for his should Brisbane list be replaced with reality TV stars?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Well done. Now, I mentioned last week I'm massively behind on sending T-shirts out, like massively, months and months. So there'll be people out there going, I don't think they really send out T-shirts. I think they're just saying we do. But no, I do have the list of everyone, and I actually started making progress on it this week. So I should have them out later this week, actually, if not early next week. So we will get them to you. I just have completely dropped the ball on that because of other nonsense.
Other commitments.
We will see you later in the week. Don't forget, I've got my show on the 6th of June in Melbourne, 7th of June in Adelaide. And if you could go and like us or give us a rating or a comment on iTunes, that always helps us get the word out there about the show. We'll talk to you soon.